ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम। देखने तो पीछे गैप क्यों आ रहा है? क्या गैप आ रहा है? So we are studying Sri Ramakrishna, the great master, fifth part, Master in the Divine Mood and Narendranath, and we have come to chapter 3, Narendra's antecedents and his first visit to Dakshineshwar. I would have liked to change the order of the heading. Narendra's first visit to Dakshineshwar and his antecedents. Because he will tell antecedents afterwards. And that is the way in Bengali. Narendranather Pratham Agaman O Parichay. So Narendranath's first visit to Dakshineshwar and his antecedents. And we have seen at the end of the last chapter that after Brahmananji came, after 3-4 months, Narendra came. Now, Narendra is the most important person so far as Thakur's divine mood is concerned. He was the person who understood Thakur best. Through him, the modern educated world will understand, and he is our ideal representative. So we'll see how the modern educated young man makes mistakes in understanding Thakur and how they are getting corrected. And that is why two characters are simultaneously before us here. Thakur the ideal and Swami Vivekananda our ideal, from where he will reach God. And he will take all of us on that path. I sometimes say that we are small question marks. And Swami Vivekananda is a big question mark. Understood? The questions of the entire world are in his mind. And there is another difference. We means world in general. When some circumstances or something, we suppress our questions or give up our questions. Narendra is not going to stop without getting answers. And Thakur is all answers. So Narendra gets answers to all our questions from Thakur and gives it to us. That is Narendra's position. So another joke can be said. Narendra was telling out of joke that had I not preached Thakur, would I known him? Then Latu Maharaj perhaps or Yogen Maharaj, they tell him that if Thakur was not there, you would have been a famous pleader in some lane in Calcutta. So that is not going to happen at all. a discussion on the mental state of the master abiding in the divine mood. So first of all, that is Sardhan Swamiji's habit. Any new turn comes, he says, let us analyze Thakur's mind. Because that can be ideal for us. We cannot be like Thakur, but we can follow him. By changing what is natural for him is sadhana for us. If his mind was like that, our mind has to be like that. Shankaracharya in the Sita Prajna Lakshana has told this in the Gita, that what is natural for a Brahmajna is the sadhana for a sadhana. The Vedas and other scriptures say that a knower of Brahman becomes all-knowing. He has explained it before. This saying of the scriptures is proved to be wholly true when we notice the present behavior of the master firmly established in the knowledge of Brahman. For not only did he now become directly acquainted with both the absolute and its relative aspect. That is very important. The general Vedantis, they harp upon Nirgun Brahma only. But in Mundaka Upanishad and in all Upanishads, transcendent immanent is Brahman. So, Nirgun Sagun is Brahman. And unless we know him in both aspects, our knowledge is not full. Established in the knowledge of Brahman, for not only did now become directly acquainted with both the absolute and its relative aspect with Brahman, and its power Maya, and rising far above all doubts and impurities, was abiding in a state of everlasting bliss. But ever feeling his oneness with the universal mother in Bhavamukh, he could understand any hidden mystery of the realm of Maya, any moment he wished to know. You want example? In Swami's case, we will show the example. That means Brahmajna is Sarvajna. He knows Brahman is real, he knows world is unreal, Maya. Now the details about anything in the Maya, if he wants to know, he will know immediately. Because he is not concerned with the Maya. But we are in Maya. So to guide us, he requires this knowledge. And that as per his wish, he gets it. Swami Vivekananda had a lecture on Vedanta philosophy in Harvard University. And it was professors and students were well impressed. But the professors wanted to show that we know something more than you. So one professor asked, have you studied chemistry? What are the relevant there? Swamiji said, yes, I know, I studied chemistry. Then will you tell the name of important authors in chemistry? Swamiji reeled off such a list with all professors combined did not have. So he just wanted to know because they're asking. So Swamiji could reply. So that is an example. And Brahman is described in Mundaka Upanishad as Sa Sarvajna Sarvavid. That means he knows all in general and all particulars also. And no doubts or impurities in his mind. But ever feeling his oneness with the universal mother in Bhavamukh, he could understand any hidden mystery of the realm of Maya any moment he wished to know. Maya could no more conceal her nature from his mind's eye. Possessed of subtle vision, and it was naturally so. For both Bhavamukh and the universal mind of Ishvara, the Lord of Maya, in which the ideation of the universe remains sometimes manifested and sometimes unmanifested, are one and the same. So two names of the same thing. Bhavamukh and universal mind of Ishvara. Ishvara is Lord of Maya, Hiranyagarbha, and he has universal mind. That is Bhavamukh. So Thakur has the universal mind. So anything arising in anybody's mind, he knows it. All minds are parts of universal mind. In Atman there are no parts. But in mind, all minds are parts of that universal mind. So he knows everything. Now it is describing another thing of the universal mind. Sometimes the world is manifested, sometimes unmanifested. So this unmanifested world is Ishvara. And when it is manifested, is Brahma. And that is, he himself is both. When it is not manifested, after Pralaya, in Srishti, it becomes manifested again. Ideation of the universe. That means universe is an idea in the universal mind. That is the important thing. Now in that idea, we are a part, you are a part. So for us, you and me are external. From Brahma point of view, there is no external world. Everything is in his mind. So ideation means mental ideas. We see it something as outside because in his mind I am there, in his mind you are there. So for us we are outside each other. All the ideas arising in the universal mind appear clearly before one who has crossed the limit of his little I-ness. So all this happens only when the little I-ness is gone and has become identified with the universal I. You see, the best of the Vedanta is outside. They say world is unreal and I am Brahman. World is unreal and I should give up my jivahood and become Brahman. But that is not very true. You see, in Chandogya Upanishad Bhashya in one place, the question is raised that is this I only an appearance? Shankar says yes. Then all this mukti and everything belongs to the ideal, this apparent I. He says yes. If you say the world is false, then the I which is experiencing the world also is equally false. And if you say I am Brahman, then you have to say Sarvam Karvidam Brahman. That is what Shankar has said. And this is exactly Ramakrishna mission position. You understand this point? I cannot be separated from the world we see. Our experience is not of the world, that is the science idea. Our experience is I am seeing this world, this is our experience. I am looking at the world, I am seeing the world. So this idam world connotes our experience and it is this experience. And all parts of this experience are similarly false. And if you say reality of I is Brahman, the reality of the world also is Brahman. That should be remembered. Today I heard about another Swami, great lecturer. Previously I know this about Ramananda Swami. Ramananda Saraswati was an outside Swami nearest to our mission ideas. And I attended one of his lectures in Nagpur, sitting outside. And I heard him say this. Today I heard the same about some other great Swami. So that is the present Shankar tradition. But Saradan Swamiji is very clear about it. This I goes away. Swamiji has said clearly that I of Aham Brahmasmi is a different I. This I goes away. That is important. This I cannot become Brahmasmi. So when he has crossed the limit of little I-ness and has become identified with the universal I, the master could know the events of all the previous births of his devotees before they had come to him. Parallel? Other avatar? Gita, 4th chapter. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam veta parantam. When Bhagavan said that I taught this to Surya in the beginning of creation, Arjuna asked how it is. You are born just 2 years before me. Then he says that I have been born many times and you are also been born many times. I remember all of them, you do not. That is the difference. Not remember, I know all of them. Tanyam Veda Sarva. Natvam Veta Paranta. Actually, past, present, and future are plays of Maya. For the Mahapurushas, anyway, what we call future is present for them. The master could know the events of all the previous births of his devotees before they had come to him, only because he had reached that state. He could know the particular Leela of the universal mind, for the manifestation of which he had assumed his present body. A particular Leela, what is Leela? God has 2 types of plays. God appears as the whole universe by Prakritim Swam Adhisthaya Sambhavami Atmamaya. Now there we get deluded. Now to help us to come out, we saw this in the beginning of Leelaprasanga. He assumes a human body with full knowledge inside. So that is called the Avatara Leela. He could know the particular Leela of the universal mind, for the manifestation of which he had assumed his present body. He also knew that some very high-class sadhakas were born by the will of God to participate in that sport. If it is called sport, Leela, then some sadhakas are already born. Similarity, when Ravana became all-powerful, people prayed to Vishnu to be born again. Vishnu or Brahma ordered all the gods to become monkeys to help Rama. So they appeared. And Master saw that they were belong to this incarnation, that incarnation. So some very high-class sadhakas were born by the will of God to participate in that sport. He further understood who among those would help him more or less in the manifestation of that play, and who would simply enjoy the benefit arising out of it and attain the akim of their life. So what he knew previously, those people are of 2 types. One is that they will get their life fulfilled, and one is that they will become helpful to him in teaching the word. So all this he clearly knew. Knowing that the time of their coming was near at hand, he was waiting for them with great eagerness, because he has to play that part. How could one be regarded except as an all-knowing one who lived within the realm of Maya and knew all her secrets? So this is called all-knowing. The master and Narendranath met for the first time at Surendra's house. Who has seen Surendra up till now? No. Ramchandra Datta and Manomohan Mitra were. So this is the third devotee, Surendra Datta. Surendra's house. When one thinks of the first meeting of Swami Vivekananda with the master, one comes to understand how eagerly the master, established in the divine state, waited for his marked devotees. As he saw the time of their arrival drawing near, Swami Brahmananda said that Surendranath Mitra of Shimla, Ramchandra Datta of Shimla, so Shimulia, Surendranath Mitra, why I am telling again and again, some people by mistake think Shimla in Punjab. Shimulia. That Surendranath Mitra of Shimla in Calcutta came to Dakshineshwar at almost the same time with him, with whom Brahman Swami came, that time Surendranath Mitra. Surendra was much attracted toward the master at his very first visit. Those who have to live permanently with him, they become like that. Drawn closer and closer to him within a short time, he took him home and celebrated a joyous festival. No particular festival, Ram Navami or Raj like that. Bringing Thakur to their house is a festival. He'll invite friends, have good meals and all that. No good singer being available for the occasion, Ram Babu used to bring some kirtankar, this or that. Surendra affectionately invited Narendra, the son of Vishwanath Datta, his neighbor. So same similar, to join the festival and treat the audience, especially the master, to devotional song. The first both things, in general for the entertainment of the Sabha, but specially Thakur wants good song. The first meeting of the master and Vivekananda, the chief playmate in his divine sport, that is how Vivekananda is looked upon by Saradananda. Chief playmate in his divine sport. Came to pass that way. It was probably the month of November 1881. Narendra, then 18 years old, was preparing for the FA examination of the Calcutta University. One should understand two things here. What is FA? Full form? First arts examination. It is not first year. Intermediate, what we call today. These days our plus 2, 12. Matric was called in Bengal entrance. That means matric was looked upon as entering the university. And this is university. First arts examination of the university after 2 years. So that is the correct thing. 18 years old was preparing for another thing. When would this examination take place? In Calcutta in those years, these university examinations were held in December. This March ending session was not there. That became converted much later on. So, November, examinations were near. The master invited Narendra to come to Dakshineshwar. So, real introduction will become here. But here, master recognized him. And Narendra also felt some attraction. That we shall see how he felt in the antecedent. Swami Brahmananda said that they clearly felt that the master was very much attracted towards Narendra as soon as he saw him that day. Or he has seen him in a vision. Or he first called Surendra and then Ramchandra to him. Ramchandra was also never. Collected all possible particulars about the youthful singer of sweet voice and asked them to take him once to Dakshineshwar. Both were nevers. So Thakur told them to bring him to Dakshineshwar. Again, when the singing was over, he himself came to the young man and studying carefully his physiognomy. What is physiognomy? The signs on the body which tell about the mind. This is called physiognomy. And we have seen Thakur is to see physiognomy and also inside. Spoke a word or two to him and invited him to come soon to Dakshineshwar someday. Now, some other events happened. Narendra refused to get married his first visit to Dakshineshwar. That became the turning point. Because Narendra first heard about the master from his principal. The FA examination of the Calcutta University was over a few weeks after the schedule. November, few weeks, examination over. At the request of a respectable gentleman of the city, boys were married very young in those days. Narendra's father was arranging to give his son in marriage to the former's daughter. Peculiar construction we feel, no? Son is not given in marriage to the daughter. A daughter is received on behalf of the son. ঠিক আছে তার কন্যার সহিত নিজ পুত্রের বিবাহ দেওয়ার জন্য চেষ্টা করিতেন he was getting his son married. For that marriage he was ready. Not that this expression is not happy. As the bride was somewhat dark in complexion, her father agreed to give a dowry of 10,000 rupees in those days. It may go to now 1 crore. But as Narendra objected strongly, the marriage could not take place. People thought that because the girl is dark, he does not want to marry. But Ramchandra understood. Ramchandra was also Datta. Ramchandra, a close devotee of Narendra's father, had been brought up in their house and was then a physician in Calcutta. When he came to know that Narendra had declined the marriage for the sake of pursuing spiritual enlightenment, he said to him, if you have a real desire to realize God, then come to the master at Dakshineshwar instead of visiting the Brahma Samaja and other places. One day at this time, Surendra too invited him to accompany him to Dakshineshwar in his carriage. Surendra had the carriage. Narendra consented because master had invited him, and with 2 or 3 friends accompanied Surendra to Dakshineshwar. 2, 3 friends he called with him. The master told us briefly in the course of a conversation what thoughts came to his mind when he saw Narendra on that occasion. Not so much in Surendra's house, but when Narendra came to Dakshineshwar, he said what the master thought of Narendra. Naren enters, it's now Thakur's language. Naren entered this room on the first day through the western door facing the Ganga. Ganga is to the east of Thakur's room. So from western door he entered. I noticed that he took no care of his body. First thing which Thakur noticed. Other people won't notice this. Or they will think he is careless. The hair of his head and his dress were not at all trim. Thakur's notice. Unlike others, he had no desire at all for any external object. So that is the state when he came to Thakur. People say he was a Nastic and Thakur converted him and showed him, and that is not the fact. He was, as it were, unattached to anything. His eyes indicated that a major part of his mind was perforce drawn ever inward. Major part of that means he is dealing with people, so outside is there. But major part of the mind is drawn inside by force. When I saw all this, I wondered, is it ever possible that such a great spiritual aspirant possessing a superabundance of sattva should live in Calcutta, the home of worldly people? Calcutta in general is taken as home of worldly people. And in that such sattvic person, there was a mattress spread on the floor. I asked him to sit down. He sat down near the jar of Ganga water. A few acquaintances of his also came with him that day. I felt that their nature was just like that of ordinary worldly people and was quite opposite to his, though they were his friends. Their attention was directed to enjoyment only. Thakur noticed these things first. And I said nothing is hidden from him. On inquiry, I came to know that he had learned 2 or 3 Bengali songs only. He was learning classical music. And the classical music, bandish as they call it, compositions, are mostly in Hindi. So Bengali songs 1 or 2 he had learned. I asked him to sing them. He began singing the Brahma song, "Oh mind, come let us go home." So that was the song. You know that song? Chalo mana nije niketane. Home, he says, our own house. Nije niketane. Man chalo nije niketane. Full song is given, important. Sansar videshe videshir veshe Brahma kena akarane. We'll read the English translation. Let me read the song, inspiring. विषय पंचक और भूतगण सब तोर पर केव नय अपन परप्रमे केनो होय अचेतन भूली छो अपन जने सत्य पथे मान करो आरोहण प्रेमेल आरो जाली चलो अनोखा संगीते संबल लो भक्ति धन गोपने अति जतने लोभ मोह आदि पथे दस्युगण पथिकेर करे सर्वस्व शोषण ताई बोली मान रेखोरे प्रहरी शम दम दुई जने फिगरेटिव साधु संग नामे आचे पांथधाम शांत होले तथा करियो विश्राम पद भ्रांत होले शुद्धयो पद शे पांथ निवासी गणे यदि देखो पथे भयरी आकार प्राणपणे दियो दोहाई राजार शे पथे राजार प्रबल प्रताप शम न डरे जार शासने is this song. Let us see. Oh mind, come let us go home. So translation is home, meaning one's own home. Why do you travel in the foreign land of the world in a foreigner's garb? That means like other people, so foreigners there. The world is a foreign place for us. The five elements and objects of the senses are all inimical to you. None of them are your own. This is all in the foreign land. Deluded with the love of others, you have forgotten the one who is your own. O my mind, go on the path of truth. Light the lamp of love. Have it always with you and go forward. Take carefully with you the secret provision of devotion. That means love and devotion. Knowledge is not there in between. ठीक है प्रेमे लालो जाली और संगत संपर्क भक्ति दो greed, delusion, etc., the dacoits, rob the travelers of everything. Lobha moha adi dasyugat. That is why I say, O mind, let the two, the control of internal organ and that of the external ones, keep watch. Shamadama Prahari. When you are tired, stay in the rest house of holy company. When going to God, one becomes tired, spiritually tired, one should rest in holy company. And when you lose your way, ask it of those who stay there. They know the way. If you find any cause of fear on your way, appeal to the king with all your might. The king wields great power there, before whom death quails in terror. So this is the song which he sang. As if in meditation, he sang it with the whole of his mind and heart. When I heard it, I could not control myself and was in ecstasy. The master's eagerness to see Narendra. Afterwards, when he left, there was such an eagerness in the heart, all the 24 hours of the day, to see him, that it cannot be expressed in words. Pritir pare viraha. Unless you know a person, there is no viraha. I felt such pain from time to time that it seemed as if someone was wringing my heart. Of course, everything is extreme. Wringing my heart like a wet towel. Unable to control myself, I then went running to the tamarisk trees in the north of the garden, where they used to go to inside the course of nature, where people do not generally go, and wept loudly, saying, "Oh, my child, come, I cannot do without seeing you." Because his knowledge will be passed to the world through him, purpose of his avatar. It was only after weeping a little thus that I could control myself. This happened continually for 6 months. My mind sometimes felt uneasy for some of the other boys too, who came here. But it can be said that that was nothing compared to my feelings in Naren's case, chief among all of them. For all those who are coming to him, he felt like that, because they are going to help in his Leela. Now, Master has simply told in the beginning and the end, after he went. But in between, what happened? So for that, sadhana you will tell in Naren's word. We came to know afterwards from a reliable source that the Master concealed much of the extraordinary emotions that arose in his mind when he saw Narendra for the first time at the Kshenesh, and spoke to us of it with reserve. In the course of conversation regarding that occasion one day, Narendranath said to us, So from some people they came to know that much more is there. But actually Narendra himself is telling them. What Narendra said of the master's talk and behavior on that occasion. I finished singing. Here one should say, though it is not mentioned here, Narendra had sung two songs. One was this, you know the other song? যাবে কিয়ে দিন আমার বিপলে চলিয়ে আশীনাথ আশা পথে when you will come to me my days should not pass in vain. That was the other song. I finished singing. Immediately afterwards the master suddenly stood up and taking me by the hand led me to the northern veranda. West, east, north. Northern veranda. It was winter, so to protect the room against the north wind, the open spaces between the pillars of the veranda were covered by mat screens. Therefore, when one entered the veranda and closed the door of the room, one could not be seen by any person within or without the room. Outside the room or inside, when they close the door, then that side is for the screens. As soon as he entered the veranda, the master closed the door of the room. I thought he might perhaps give me some instructions in private. But what he said and did was beyond imagination. He suddenly caught hold of my hand and shed profuse tears of joy. Addressing me affectionately, like one already familiar, he said, "Is it proper that we should come so late? Should you not have once thought how I was waiting for you?" Hearing continually the idle talk of worldly people, my ears are about to be scorched. Not having anyone to whom to communicate my innermost feelings, I am about to burst. Two different things. Hearing from people, the ears are getting burnt. And not able to talk to him, then the whole body is getting burst. And so he went on raving and weeping of joy, weeping of feeling. The next moment he stood before me with folded palms and showing me the regard due to a God, went on saying, "I know, my Lord, you are that ancient Rishi Nara, a part of Narayana." What is that ancient Rishi Nara and part of Narayana? Nara Narayana, joint avatar, you may say. Narayana is the avatar, Nara is his Shishya. And they both together went to Badridham and meditated there and brought this knowledge of Advaita and distributed to people. So the Advaita is, pray to them in the beginning of any discourse. From there our lineage starts. Narayanam, Padmabhavam, Vashishtam, Shaktim cha Tatputra Parasharam cha, like that. So that is that Narayan. And Nara is always with him. So you are Nara Rupi Narayan, part of Narayan, who has incarnated himself this time to remove the miseries and sufferings of men. Then who is Narayan? Obviously Thakur himself. Narendra promised to come again. I was absolutely nonplussed and thought, whom have I come to see? He is, I see, completely insane. How could Narayan understand this? Why should he otherwise speak in this strain to me, who am really the son of Vishwanath Datta? However, I kept silent, and the wonderful madman went on speaking whatever he liked. The next moment he asked me to wait this. there and entered the room and bringing some butter, candy and sandesh, sandesh is Bengali sweet, began to feed me with his own hand. He never gave ear to my repeated request to give me these so that I might partake of them with my companions, saying they will, Thakur saying, they will take them up later. You take these yourself. That means for Thakur, his friends are no people. They will take. Saying so, he fed me with all the sweets before he could rest content. He then caught hold of my hand and said, promise you will soon come to me again and all alone. Because he had to come and hide and he wanted to tell him so many things. Unable to evade that earnest request of his, I had to say, I will. And then I entered the room with him and sat down beside my companion. Narendra's impression of the master during his first visit, he was a monomaniac, but one who had indeed renounced his all for the sake of God. Monomaniac, you understand? Mad about something, not about everything. I went on observing him closely and could find no trace of madness in his deportment, conversation, or behavior towards others. Impressed by his fine talk and ecstasy, again and again entering ecstasy. When Naren singing entered ecstasy, I thought that he was truly a man of renunciation who had given up his all for God and practiced personally what he said. So impression is created that I do not see God, but he has seen. What he said, God can be seen and spoken with, just as I am seeing you and speaking with you. But who wants to do so? That means the first condition is desire to know, keen desire. People grieve and shed potfuls of tears at the death of their wives and sons and behave in the same way for the sake of money or property. But who does so because he cannot realize God? If anyone is really equally anxious to see him and call on him, he certainly reveals himself to him. So assurance to the question is in his mind. Can we see God? Yes. Have you seen God? Yes. When I heard these words of his, the impression grew on me that it was not mere poetry or imagination, couched in fine figures of speech, that he was expressing like other preachers of religion. Just to make up stories, he is not making that. But that he was speaking that of which he had an immediate knowledge, which he had actually got by really renouncing everything and calling on God with all his might. So this is the impression created by him. So a good mind would understand about that. Trying to harmonize these words with the behavior, with his behavior towards me a little while previously, I remembered the examples of the monomaniacs mentioned in Abercrombie and other English philosophers. So a study of madness was going on in those days, and they have mentioned this monomania. Although I came to that conclusion, I could not forget the greatness of his wonderful renunciation for God. This important point of Narendra's mind. If you find somebody is God, will not take him seriously at all. But this is one side. His eagerness of God is very real. It was real. Yes, mad, but how pure and what renunciation. So purity, renunciation, seeing God, all these things came to Narendra. Yes, mad, but I thought, well, he may be mad, but it is indeed a rare soul alone in the world who could undertake such renunciation. Yes, mad, but how pure and what renunciation. So purity was noticed, renunciation is noticed. Yes, mad. He is truly worthy of respect, reverence, and worship in by the human heart. If they are spiritual seekers, so this filtration is so important. He is mad, but he is a great man. Truly worthy of respect, reverence, and worship by the human heart. Thinking thus, I bowed down at his feet to cleave of him and returned to Calcutta that day. As the reader will naturally have the curiosity to know the antecedents of one, the sight of whom roused such extraordinary emotions in the master's mind, we shall now relate them. This is the context. Very important. Huh? Practice of religion at that time by Narendra. He was always a seeker. Narendra did not then spend his time in the acquisition of knowledge and in learning music only. Mentioned that BFA examination, and he was learning classical music. So not that much only, but engaged himself in observing perfect continence, perfect continence, and in practicing severe austerity under the impulsion of a religious temper. A strict vegetarian, he spent his nights lying on the bare ground or on a bed consisting of one blanket only. Now the importance of this should be understood. Strict vegetarian. What is the importance? By tradition and habit, he was not a vegetarian. He belonged to that Datta caste, and they were meat eaters in his house. But under the impulse of religion, he has turned vegetarian. And this either sleeping on the bare ground or one blanket. His mother's mother had a rented house near his ancestral one. He generally lived in a room on the first floor over the outer apartment of that house ever since he appeared for the entrance examination. Now FA, entrance is metric. So after that for 2 years almost, he was staying there, not in his own house. When it was inconvenient to stay there for some reason or other, he hired a room near that house. Rich enough, lived separately, away from his relatives and family, and engaged himself in accomplishing his object, namely the realization of God. People in his home thought for study, he said. His large-hearted father and other members of the family thought that he was living separately only because he found it rather inconvenient to study at home on account of various kinds of distractions and disorders arising from too many persons living together there. So many people are supported by his father. He used to visit the Brahma Samaj religion. Narendra was then frequenting the Brahma Samaj and becoming a believer in the existence of the formless Brahman with attribute. Some modern educated young man, Western educated. Formless Brahman with attribute. So it is not real Nirakar Nirgun. Nirakar Sagun. We will discuss this enough one day. And began spending much time in meditation on him He could not remain satisfied like other people by simply becoming convinced of the existence of the formless Brahman with the help of inference and reasoning. Led by the spiritual tendencies of his past lives, his heart was incessantly telling him that if God really exists, he will never keep his own nature concealed from an eagerly seeking human heart. Instinct is tendencies of his past lives that he certainly had laid down the means to realize him, and that life will become a burden and a drudgery if it is not a quest for the realization of God. No purpose in life otherwise. He, we distinctly remember, said to us once. So, he is telling his own mind. The two wonderful ideas of Narendra. This will complete Narendra's talk. As soon as I went to bed, two ideas appeared before me every night since I had reached my youth. One vision presented me as a person of endless wealth and property, innumerable servants and dependents, high rank and dignity, great pomp and power, and I thought that I was seated at the head of those who were called big men in the world. I felt I certainly had the power in me, had that power in me. Again, the next moment, I felt as if I had renounced everything of the world and putting on a loincloth, eating whatever was available without effort, and spending nights under trees and depending on God's will only, I was leading my life. I felt I could live the life of the rishis and the munis if I would. So that capacity also I had. These two pictures, according to which I could mold my life in two different ways, thus arose in my mind. But the latter would grip the mind in the end. I thought that it was in this way alone that man could attain real bliss and that I would follow this path and not the other. Shreyasya Prayasya. Brooding on the happiness of such a life, brooding. Brooding is generally on depressive thoughts. Thinking, imagining, thinking. Bhavite, bhavite. Thinking, feeling, contemplating. Contemplating has come now. Such like my mind would then merge in the contemplation of God and I would fall asleep. It is a matter of astonishment that it happened so every night for a long time. So this is Naren's description of himself. Then how he meditated and all that comes next. Om Sarvadharma Stapakastam Sarvadharma Swarupakaha Acharyana Mahacharyo Ramakrishna Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hare Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.